Alright, that's it. I'm tired of the Avengers, I'm tired of the X-Men, I'm tired of the Fantastic Four. I'm done with all these do-gooders. Let's bring on the bad guys. The Marvel Cinematic Universe initially found great success with its superhero team-ups, but those types of films are starting to become somewhat commonplace. If Marvel Studios wants to keep things interesting in this current era of superhero movies, it would be a good idea for them to examine the opposite side of the thing that made them popular: supervillain team-ups. Not very many memorable evil groups have actually appeared in the MCU up until now, aside from Hydra, and the comic book source material is a veritable goldmine of sinister alliances that could shake things up on the big or small screen in the near future. Let's take a look at 12 villain teams we could see in the MCU's Phase 5. First on our list is a group that has already appeared in the MCU, but in an almost completely unrecognizable manner. A.I.M, or Advanced Idea Mechanics, debuted in Iron Man 3 as a scientific think tank created by Aldrich Killian. The group created and utilized the Extremis Serum, which essentially turned people into walking bombs, in order for Killian to amass power and attempt a takeover of the US government. Their plot to blame a fake version of the Mandarin for these attacks was ultimately uncovered and foiled by Tony Stark, who defeated Killian once and for all. There's nothing really unique about the movie version of this group apart from their use of Extremis, but the original version of A.I.M is another story entirely. The comic book version is a vast criminal organization not dissimilar to Hydra, with their goal being to create advanced technology that will allow them to take over the world. Their most distinguishing feature is the bright yellow hazmat suits they wear, which frequently earn them beekeeper-related mocking from the various superheroes they face. There's no denying that Iron Man 3's version of A.I.M did not live up to the one from the comics, so it would be nice to see Marvel rectify this by reintroducing the group in the near future. Their return could give the MCU so many new crazy pieces of technology, plus it would give Marvel the opportunity to, well, give them the beekeeper suits. Tell me you don't want to see this in live action. Come on. The group does in fact still exist in the MCU, as proven by a blink and you'll miss it shot in the Loki series, so hopefully the return of Advanced Idea Mechanics is in the cards for the near future. With the X-Men confirmed to be coming to the MCU soon-ish, we're gonna need some rival mutants to counter them. To me, the only group that feels appropriate to fill this requirement is the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. This team was founded by Magneto and first appeared in 1964, during the very first run of X-Men comics. Over the years, the group has become one of the most iconic and recurring villainous teams in all of Marvel, with several versions of the group with various lineups showing up again and again. The Brotherhood of Evil Mutants are basically a dark reflection of the X-Men, with a complete and total dedication to proving the superiority of mutants over humans. Their bigoted and uncompromising attitude would allow a perfect opportunity to show the altruism and strength of the X-Men, who could very easily become just as bad as the Brotherhood themselves with
a little push.
Additionally, the different types of powers belonging to the Brotherhood's various members would be a visual treat, and would provide several different types of threats for the X-Men to have to work together to overcome. Mutants haven't even been introduced in the MCU yet, but the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants could serve as a key factor in determining just how the species will make their presence known. The Frightful Four is another villainous group that basically serves as the antithesis of the heroes they're pitted against, with those heroes in this case being the Fantastic Four. The gravity-controlling villain known as the Wizard formed the group in 1965, swearing revenge on Reed Richards and the FF for constantly foiling his evil schemes. The Frightful Four is another group that has had a rotating lineup throughout the years, and they've had some pretty ridiculous members, including Medusa of the Inhumans and even the Thing himself. He was brainwashed, don't worry, he got better. Despite this, there have been several core members, aside from the Wizard, that have been part of several different incarnations, including the Trapster, formerly known as Paste Pot Pete, Titania, and even the Spider-Man villains Hydro-Man and Sandman. With the Fantastic Four's third reboot on the way, this time from Marvel Studios, it would be a great opportunity to bring the Frightful Four into the MCU. Previous Fantastic Four movies have pretty much exclusively focused on the group fighting Doctor Doom, but to me he feels more like a villain whose presence needs to be built up across several movies before finally making himself known. The Frightful Four would be a great group of starter villains for Marvel's first family, countering their powers and values perfectly while also not serving as a world-ending threat. Not to mention, the inclusion of various Spider-Man villains in this group's lineup opens the door for a team-up between the FF and the Web-Slinger, something comic fans have asked for years. Will Poulter's Adam Warlock is officially coming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and fans shouldn't be too surprised if he brings the Universal Church of Truth with him. In the comics, the group is a religious organization dedicated to the worship of Magus, Adam Warlock's evil form. They travel the galaxy, either taking over or destroying planets in the name of Magus, and they have gone up against the Guardians of the Galaxy as well as Adam himself. Obviously, that's a lot of backstory to fit into one movie, so how could the Universal Church of Truth be introduced in a not overly complicated way in the MCU? Well, Guardians 2 introduced us to the Sovereign, a race of gold-skinned, genetically engineered jerks with a bone to pick against Star-Lord and the gang. One of the film's post-credit scenes showed the Sovereign's leader Aisha beginning the process of creating Adam Warlock, so the sequel could very easily just have the Sovereign become the Universal Church of Truth. With him serving as the next step in their evolution, the Sovereign would now worship Adam as their god, with his creator Aisha pulling the strings the whole time so she can use him to get revenge on the Guardians. Alternatively, the Church could be trying to awaken Magus within him. Either way, this transformation into zealotry would make the Sovereign even more dangerous than before, and they would have the potential to serve as recurring villains on Marvel Studios' cosmic side, connecting various disparate adventures together through their galactic reach. Despite having served as one of the Marvel Cinematic Universe's most prominent superheroes so far, the Incredible Hulk hasn't really had too many of his own foes appear on the big screen. The Abomination only recently came back after a 13-year hiatus, and who knows what happened to the leader. However, Marvel's got the chance to remedy this with the upcoming She-Hulk show, which would be a great place to bring in some new Hulk villains, including the UFOs. The UFOs are a team of 4 who gain their abilities while attempting to recreate the space flight that empowered the Fantastic Four. Each member has a different power, with the team's leader Vector, oh yeah! No, not that one, being able to use telekinesis to repel matter, Vapor being able to transform into gas, X-Ray being able to produce radiation, and Ironclad having a metallic body. The vast range of powers that the UFOs possess allow them to go toe-to-toe with some of Marvel's most powerful characters, including the Hulk, She-Hulk, and Spider-Man. So they could easily be introduced in the She-Hulk series before continuing to pop up in different places around the MCU. Considering the fact that they got their powers while trying to copy the Fantastic Four, it would make total sense for the UFOs to go up against them as well. The MCU is in need of more memorable minor villains, and the UFOs would fit that role perfectly. Can't make a villainous team list without bringing up these guys. With so many different movie versions of Spider-Man having appeared over the years, you would think that his greatest villain team would have assembled at this point, but you'd be wrong. The Sinister Six have had a notoriously rocky cinematic history, but with Spidey now firmly planted in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the time has come to bring the group to the big screen. There have been hints dropped about the Six's introduction since Spider-Man Homecoming, and the alliance of villainous variants in No Way Home feels like a dry run for a proper Sinister Six later down the line. While Tom Holland's been non-committal when it comes to answering questions about his future as Spider-Man, various reports have suggested that another trilogy starring him is in development, which provides the perfect space to finally bring in the team. Spider-Man's got a stacked rogues gallery, even in the MCU, so the formation of the Sinister Six feels like a must-have for Tom Holland's journey to feel complete. This will probably be the most obscure entry on this list. The Chronos Corps is a time-traveling group of variants from across the multiverse who were brought together by Kang the Conqueror. He saved each one of them from dying universes and led them in a quest to fight 2 time-altering villains called the Apocalypse Twins. This team has a wild lineup, including alternate versions of Venom, Doctor Doom, Psylocke, Arno Stark, the Abomination, A.I.M, and Cable. No one but Kang could assemble such a ragtag group of time travelers, so it's a good thing he was recently introduced to the MCU. Marvel Studios has used the multiverse as a plot device quite frequently in the recent past, so it wouldn't be surprising to see Kang establish a team of variants from different universes when he finally makes his move. Kang also has another team of variants in the comics called the Anachronauts. They're warriors from across time and were assembled with the purpose of serving him and protecting his city, Chronopolis. Either team could honestly appear in the MCU, but I chose the Chronos Corps just because I think it would be more interesting to see variants of existing characters, rather than to suddenly introduce a group of people we've never seen before. When Captain America Civil War was first announced in October 2014, it was initially teased as a movie starring the Serpent Society, before its true nature was revealed. Nothing ultimately came of that tease other than it serving as a fun little twist that made the film's announcement that much more exciting. But I believe that the Serpent Society would make for a great threat for future Captain America movies. In the comics, the Serpent Society is an organization made up of various snake-themed villains from across the Marvel Universe. They frequently come into conflict with both major versions of Captain America, and they're usually associated with Hydra thanks to their member Viper, who has also served as Madam Hydra. With Hydra having fallen in the MCU, it would be easy for a new organization to rise up and take its place, almost as a sort of evolution. That way, the connection between the groups could still be maintained in the MCU while updating it to fit the universe's current status quo. In recent years, the group has rebranded itself as Serpent Solutions in order to project a more legitimate image, and this element feels like it would fit in the MCU especially well. A film starring Sam Wilson as Cap, peeling back the layers of conspiracy tied to Serpent Solutions would be fascinating, and could give him his most dangerous battle yet as he learns of their true intentions. Which would be to turn everyone into snakes or something. Oh, and they would also have to say, "We live in a Serpent Society" in the movie. The Maggia is essentially Marvel Comics' answer to the real-life Mafia. They control most organized crime in the Marvel Universe, and they're not afraid to hire supervillains to work for them. The organization is broken up into various crime families, each of whom have their own territory and style of operations, as well as their own superhero enemies. Technically, the Maggia have already appeared in the MCU in the series Agent Carter, and they were also mentioned in Daredevil. These appearances were very minor, and similarly to how I feel about A.I.M, I don't think Marvel has given one of their most powerful criminal organizations their proper due. Luckily, this problem is very easy to fix, especially if Marvel dedicates some focus to more street-level crime. The Maggia isn't going to try to blow up the world with a missile or whatever, they want to make money. It would make the most sense to tie the Maggia to Kingpin, who has usually been depicted as their primary rival. They could try to move in on his territory while he's recovering from the injuries he sustained in Hawkeye, something that would surely lead to a gang war that would have to be stopped by some lower-level heroes, like Daredevil, Kate Bishop, or heck, even our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. How do you fight a team of Earth's mightiest heroes? Well, one option is to create a team of Earth's mightiest villains. The Masters of Evil debuted in the pages of the Avengers in 1964, where they were assembled by the first Baron Zemo to help him cover the city in an adhesive glue. Unfortunately, they were defeated with the aid of none other than Paste Pot Pete. Could Paste Pot Pete be the most powerful Marvel character ever? Nah, everyone knows it's Big Wheel. The Masters of Evil have popped up again and again over the years to fight the Avengers, usually under the leadership of Baron Zemo. Though he hasn't appeared much, the MCU Zemo is beloved by fans, and it would be a joy to see Daniel Bruhl at the head of a villainous team. Other frequent members include Bullseye, Black Knight, and Titania, all of whom are either in the MCU or will be arriving soon. With Thanos out of the way, the Masters of Evil could be the perfect ongoing threat to the Avengers, or really any other hero group in the MCU. Rather than relying on raw power like the not-so-jolly Purple Giant did, the Masters would instead be able to match their adversaries in numbers. The beauty of the team is that there's been so many different types of villains on their lineup that they could really face off against almost any hero. At the end of the day though, if a villain team as significant as the Masters of Evil is going to debut anywhere in the MCU, it really should be in a fight against the Avengers. While a lot of people think of the Thunderbolts as just being Marvel's answer to the Suicide Squad, there's actually a lot more nuance to the group than that. They started out as an incarnation of the Masters of Evil led by Baron Zemo, who impersonated a group of heroes. Their goal was to gain enough public and governmental trust that they would eventually be able to take over the world. But a number of the team's members ended up actually turning good and turning on Zemo. The Thunderbolts then went on the run and became fugitives, picking up several new members over the years. To coincide with Marvel's iconic Civil War event in 2006, the Thunderbolts were reintroduced as a group of villains being forced to work for the government, kept in line using nanobot technology. Obviously, this portrayal of the team is very similar to DC Comics' Suicide Squad, with both featuring supervillains being forcibly placed onto teams for Black Ops missions. This version of the Thunderbolts proved to be popular, and they've made multiple appearances in various different forms since the event. In the case of the Thunderbolts' arrival to the MCU, it would probably be a better idea for Marvel to go with the team's original portrayal rather than them being Suicide Squad light. The idea of a group of villains wanting to redeem themselves is prime material for the MCU, and it would add depth to a lot of characters who may not have received enough development their first time around. We've had a lot of Suicide Squad related content over the last few years, so it would be a good idea for Marvel to ensure that their Thunderbolts are markedly different from Task Force X. Last but certainly not least, the Dark Avengers seem to be the villainous team that Marvel Studios is most intent on introducing. Throughout Phase 4, Valentina Allegra de Fontaine has popped up a few times, recruiting both John Walker and Yelena Belova to join her for an as-of-yet unknown purpose. Given the circumstances, it certainly seems like Val is creating her own team of Avengers. The Dark Avengers were originally introduced in the comics as a group of villains secretly impersonating heroes, similar to the Thunderbolts. Norman Osborn founded the team and then used them as his own personal hit squad, while the MCU's Valentina seems to be a bit less corrupt, at least publicly. Both of her recruits aren't villains per se, but they are vigilantes with a tendency to go too far, which is something Val can control and exploit if she wants. At the moment, it seems likely that Val will continue showing up throughout Phase 4 to recruit new members for her team. similarly to how Nick Fury made a bunch of cameos throughout Phase 1. With her very own Captain America and Black Widow equivalents already on her team, we'll just have to see who Val approaches next to create her own, slightly darker version of Earth's mightiest heroes. Hey folks, I'm Matt Sonic, I made this video, and I would like to thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments if I missed any villainous teams that you think should join the MCU, and where you think they could appear. Make sure you subscribe to CBR and leave a like on this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.